Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. How about this? The last, in my opinion, super marquee transfer is off the board. Player named Coleman Hawkins. We have talked about Coleman Hawkins a ton on this show over the last couple weeks, okay? Was at Illinois, enters the NBA draft, decides not to stay in the NBA draft, and elects to return to college basketball, averaged 12.5 points, 6 rebounds, 37% three-point shooting on an Illinois team that made the Elite Eight and won the Big Ten championship. So why do I bring it up? Decided not to enter the NBA draft, enters the transfer portal, and on Friday, he made his decision. Coleman Hawkins, forward, played 4 years at Illinois. He will use his last year of college basketball he is headed to play for Kansas State University. So big shout out to Jerome Tang and the Wildcats. I'll say this for Jerome Tang. Jerome Tang does work, and he does it late. Got Arthur Kaluma on June 11th of last year and gets Coleman Hawkins on June 13th of 2024. Here's what's interesting, though, and here's why I have decided to talk about it. Not just because big name, big school, whatever. It is because he got a big bag to come to Kansas State. According to Shams Charania, a guy that we've talked about a lot on this show, of course, the NBA reporter, according to a tweet that he put out on Friday, Coleman Hawkins has committed to play for Kansas State in what's believed to be the most lucrative college basketball NIL deal negotiated from a collective at over $2 million for next season. So we can debate, is $2 million too much for Coleman Hawkins? Is it not enough? Is it whatever? But let's go ahead and give this kid credit. First of all, producer Matt, pop up the tweet that I sent you earlier today, because I was told that when Coleman Hawkins decided to come back, he was coming back for great Osabor money. He understands that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We live in an NIL world, and it's almost like a veteran that's like, I'm just going to get the biggest bag possible. This is what I tweeted out the night of May 29th, the NBA draft deadline. I said, Coleman Hawkins will return to college hoops in news first reported by Shams Charania. And I said, per a source, his agent has already let schools know he's looking for a payday on par with great Osabor, which was reportedly $2 million. In other words, if you're not ready to pay, don't even call. So thank you for that, producer Matt. And listen, let's give Coleman Hawkins credit, because he came back, as I said, he was telling schools before he even withdrew from the draft that he was looking for a major payday on par with great Osabor. And I also got to give him credit because I whiffed on something after he came back. When he decided to come back, I said, did he wait too long? Are there any spots left that he wants to play at in terms of a high-profile school? And more importantly, are the schools that want him, can they get him? Like, is there that match of a good school, good program winning with the NIL? And I said he should have pulled out of the draft a week or two before, because his options were kind of slim. He was a guy that we thought North Carolina was interested, but they added a big man right before the NBA draft deadline. We thought Louisville was interested, but they were out of scholarships by the time he came back. So credit to him, because he got the money, according to Shams, that he had been looking for. And he is now going to what I think should be a very good and very entertaining Kansas team in the 2024-2025 season. Now, in terms of what Kansas State is getting from Coleman Hawkins, pretty straightforward. I think he's probably one of the 15 or 20 best college basketball players in America next year. Now, listen, for the payday that he's getting, is top 10, top 15, is that enough? I don't know. But I'll tell you this, we talked about it with Great Osabor. I said, Great Osabor, the kid that got $2 million from Washington, you pay a kid that much money, you think you're getting one of the best players in college basketball. I don't think Great Osabor is that. He's 6'8". He's a power forward. He can't shoot. Played at the mid-major level. So credit to him for getting the money. I'm not criticizing him for taking the bag. What I will say, though, is, to me, I did kind of question, was that a smart business investment for Washington? Well, I bring it up because with Coleman Hawkins, whether it's a good business investment or not, I do think you're getting probably a top 20 player in college basketball. This guy that does it on both ends of the court. I know the 12.6 rebounds doesn't sound like a lot, but he's 6'10". It's worth noting he was pretty banged up last year throughout the season, had knee tendonitis, missed about 2 weeks of the season, and then he was playing at less than full strength the rest of the year. I bring it up because he had a pretty good year, leads Illinois to a Big Ten championship. There was obviously turmoil. We know about the Terrence Shannon situation that just got resolved this past week, but Terrence Shannon misses time. Coleman Hawkins is injured, and he leads that team to, like I said, a 3 seed in the tournament, a Big Ten tournament championship, and a team that, frankly, if they weren't in UConn's bracket, was absolutely good enough to go to the Final Four. And so now you add him in with what now not Illinois, that's his old school. We'll talk about Illinois in a second. But you add him in with what Kansas State has. I actually really like this group a lot. So Kansas State, here are some of the pieces that they've added this offseason. They had a kid named Doug McDaniel, a guard who ironically is a former Big Ten rival at Michigan. He played with the Wolverines. He was really the first big piece to commit to Jerome Tang this offseason. Averaged 16 points, 4.5 assists per game, 37% three-point shooting. Now, the issue with Doug McDaniel is he had some off-the-court issues, had some academic issues. If you remember, he wasn't allowed to travel with the team, which was relatively unprecedented because Juwan Howard just wanted him to get his academics together. But nobody can deny that he is a very, very, very good college point guard. You have Okoro, the kid from Samford. Remember, Samford, buckyball. They almost beat, ironically, Kansas in the NCAA tournament. That kid's about 6'8", 6'9". Like Coleman Hawkins, can play multiple positions. The one thing I didn't mention about Coleman Hawkins, by the way, he can basically defend like 2 through 5. Right situation, you can play him at the 5, and he can handle himself defensively. But you add Okoro, guy who averaged 15, 16 points per game, 43% three-point shooting. I think he'll be good in the Big 12. And then you add Agana Onyenso from Kentucky, who, of course, was a difference maker down low for Kentucky, blocked a lot of shots. I know Kentucky fans, I know what you're going to say. Agana Onyenso is not a finished product. He's not elite, but you can now play him. You don't have to play him 29 or 30 minutes a game. Against certain teams, when you're playing Hunter Dickinson in Kansas, when you're playing those type teams with big, true back-to-the-basket 5s, you can play Agana Onyenso. But you can also have lineups where Coleman Hawkins plays the 5 and Okoro plays the 4, where Okoro and Coleman Hawkins are playing together, where Coleman Hawkins defends the 5. And when I look at Kansas State, I'll say this. I like the versatility that they bring specifically in the front court. Because when Coleman Hawkins committed on Friday, that was a lot of what I got. Well, Torres, I mean, come on, man. Torres, they got too many big guys. It's like, well, they got a lot of big guys. But outside of Agana Onyenso, who I think is more of a 15 to 20-minute-a-game guy as opposed to a 30 to 35-minute-a-game guy, all their big guys are versatile. If Coleman Hawkins can get healthy, that is one of the most versatile players in all of college basketball. As I said, Okoro, I think will be very good in the Big 12. And so when I look at the addition of Coleman Hawkins, I'll say this. I have not updated my way too early top 25 since this edition. I think Kansas State is about a top 20 team or so in college basketball. Now, there's 4 at the top of the Big 12 that they have to be there. Houston, Kansas, Iowa State, and Baylor. I have all 4 in the top 10, and I think you could kind of be interchangeable with them. I have Kansas at number 3, Houston at number 4, Baylor and Iowa State in that like 6 to 10 range. Then it's worth noting, remember, Arizona is now in the Big 12 as well. I have them at number 11, I believe 10 or 11. So I think there's that first tier of those 4, Houston, Baylor, Iowa State, and Kansas. Then you have Arizona, which is kind of in that a tier of itself, maybe a second tier. But I think Kansas State is right in that Arizona tier, along with the team that I've talked about a little bit over the last couple of weeks, and that's BYU. I think BYU is actually going to be better than people realize. They return quite a bit from last year's NCAA tournament team. We'll talk about their former coach in just a minute. But you look at BYU. You look at Kansas State. You look at Arizona. I think all those teams are really good, probably in that second tier, like I said. It doesn't change the fact, though, that I think this is a huge, huge, huge addition. Like I said, quick credit to Jerome Tang, because Jerome Tang, he operates late, man. I mean, if you remember again last year, signed Arthur Kaluma in June, the middle of June after the NBA draft deadline, signed Quez Glover, I think in like August. And now he signs Coleman Hawkins. And now he has what I believe to be a top 25 team.